Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitol Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! And a good afternoon to you. It's Thursday. That means it's time for China Uber Alice. I'm Bill Graff, your host. Our regular guests on this program are Nan Su, a senior reporter from the Epoch Times, and Amy Howe, a survivor of the re-education camps under Chairman Mao during the Cultural Revolution in mainland China. This is going to be a great program. We are going to talk about some things topical in the news today, and we will, of course, begin our program in just a moment with Amy Howe's story. First of all, good afternoon, Amy. How are you?
Very good. How are you guys?
I'm great. I trust the smoke isn't too bad where you are today. I know the fires are a little closer to you, Amy, than it is to us. But I looked at the moon last night, and it was bright orange. Really That's phenomenal. Right. Really something.
Yeah, but the smell is pretty good.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Nan Su is here in the studio with me. Hello, sir. How are you?
Okay.
We have set up a pretty good program today. Tell us about the guest we're going to hear after we check in with Amy and her story.
Yes, we're going to have a return guest, Josh Phillips from the Epoch Times. He's a senior investigative reporter at Epoch Times. Also, he's the program host of Crossroad.
On Epoch Times Television.
Yeah, on Epoch Times Television. You can find them on on YouTube. And he's going to talk about the cyber attack from China.
Oh boy!
And he's an expert on that. So we're going to have him talk about that. And then the second hour, of course, we're going to talk about what China wants from
the Taliban.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, and Afghanistan and the Taliban. But first, as always, we start our program with a story from Amy Howe. Remember, Amy grew up under Chairman Mao's Cultural Revolution in China, mainland China, and every time Amy tells a story about how she grew up and what she knows about mainland China, we end up bringing that into the current situation, which is what we're talking about. And I have no doubt whatsoever that when Amy gets done with her story today, we'll be able to relate that directly with what we're going to talk about in the program. Amy, we are looking forward to your story.
Yes. Just like you say, the history probably will repeat, just in different time and different locations. Last couple of days, I watching TV about this Kabul, Afghanistan, the evacuations. And lots of people, I hope everybody can get out of there, but there's some people, I think they cannot get out. They probably just have to hiding, and maybe, people was associated with America and helping American do some work. But they're not able to escape, so right now they're probably hiding, and some people just desperately, basically, in danger, waiting for death sentence. So that reminds me something, not just 1975, the Saigon Fall. Also remind me long time ago, my uncle Charlie's story. My uncle Charlie, when 1943, he just a senior high school student in a missionary school. And then after Japanese occupied Shanghai, so the whole school led by American priests, and they moved to Kunming, is inside of China, and to continuing the education. So that place, Kunming, also is the countries that the camp I went, the re-education I laid down. And so that time, American Air Force and the Flying Tiger was there and fighting a Japanese, also training a Chinese Air Force and the base there. So they desperately need a lot to interpret. So the priest, American priest, told asking my uncle Charlie, he said that you want to be a volunteer, you are senior high, and you speak perfect Chinese and English. So maybe you can be an interpreter. So he agreed. And to fighting with the Japanese, right? Of course, he agreed. So he just jumped in on the job, and by the time he still is a part-time interpreter. Then a year later, he turned 18, so they hired him as a full-time job as an interpreter. And then he was very proud of himself and to working with Flying Tiger. But that was 1944. So 1945, when Japanese surrendered, so the mission accomplished. So Flying Tiger go home. And also that missionary school also went back to Shanghai. And then my Uncle Charlie, and he met a girl in the nightclub. She is a beautiful dancing girl. Dancing girl means they were, you would say, they also call taxi girl, like you pay for the hour to, they dance with you in the nightclub. So he fall in love with that girl. And normally those girls are very beautiful, but they're from very poor family. That's the only place they can make money and to support the family in Shanghai in that time. So she found Charlie, and Charlie was young and handsome, and also my grandparents give him a lot of money and properties. And so she's very happy, very grateful and married him. And so they got married, and that time Charlie lived in the Shanghai, like a whole load of houses and called Alien. And they probably 15 houses my grandma gave it to him. So he lived one and then rent out all others. So they're doing very well. And after a few years, they have 2 kids, another on the way in 1948. And 3 years later, after Japanese surrender. But that time, his friend and all the people, his schoolmate from that missionary school, they all prepare and to leave because they know communist, party is coming and they're going to occupy. And so they are planning to escape. And so they asked Charlie to go with them. Because some of his friends, they're already becoming the nationalists, their Air Force or Army officers. So they had to leave. And some, and they also work for the national government. They had to leave too. And so kind of big evacuation. So they asked Charlie to go, say that because you're not safe here, because you work for American Air Force, the Flying Tiger. So sooner or later, they will get you. You better leave to Taiwan. And he said, no, I'm not single man anymore. I have a family. I just have a 2 sons and another one on the way. So I just cannot leave. Also, I have this other properties. And I cannot take with me. So what I'm going to do in Taiwan, I had to think about how to make a living and to feed the whole family. And so he rejected. So they all left in 1949, and they occupied Shanghai. The communists take over. And he stayed, but he think that time he still think maybe he still can. Business as usual. And he was a stockbroker. And he think everything will be same. But they're not too long, and the stock exchange closed immediately. And then the Korea War happened. so that time the Communist Party asked everybody and that were used to work for American, associate with the American government or the Army or Air Force or whatever, you had to register. And if you don't, somebody report you, and you immediately go to jail. And so he went to register. But then he think, I'm just interpreter. I didn't do anything. I'm not a real army personnel, or I'm not a real government person. So I'm fine. I didn't do anything. I just translated. Right? Anyway, so he registered, and then probably 6 months later, they arrested him and put him in jail. And they accused him as a traitor, and also is the spy, because you speak English and you were associated with American.
Hey, Amy,
So,
do you know why
yeah.
they waited 6 months?
I don't know. I don't know why they wait 6 months, but that's about the timeline. And they were, I think that they have a lot of people. So just go from top to down, so category and what people are supposed to arrest it. And so get his turn, so they arrest him, put him in jail. And there's no trial or anything. They just want him to confess. How do you do the spy, how you become a traitor, and kind of things, But there's nothing to talk about. He just interpreted, right? So anyway, that happened. And so that time also they took, because he's a traitor, they accused him as a traitor, but they sentenced him to 10 years and sent him to some labor camp. And the family, meanwhile, has no support anymore because they took all his property. Because once you're a traitor, they accuse you as a traitor, and so they took away all your personal property. So all his houses are gone. And when he got home, he was released early. The reason is he was very sick. He got a TB. He almost died. Very, very sick. So they kicked him out, because they don't want him to infect the other people there. And he got home, I think it's probably 2 years later he got home, and he saw his family, and they've been kicked out of the house, and they confiscated all the properties. They were living in the one used to be doorman's reception room, just in the reception of mails and stuff like that. But the whole family is no kitchen facilities, no bathroom facility. They had to go to public bathroom. And so it was very, very awful condition they live. And also he's still sick, in the TB. So that time, and they have some kind of movement, and they want Shanghai people living in Shanghai. If you don't have a job, they want you to go to northwest part of China. And they have some coal mines. They say they're going to provide you a job. So his wife said, well, you are sick, and I'm afraid that the 3 kids were infected, and also we need food. So they have this job offer in the northwest China, the coal mine, very primitive condition, but I got to go because for the kids. So I agree with. And so that time my grandma is still alive, so he moved back, lived with the grandma, and then his wife took 3 kids to the northwest, the coal mine, to stay and work in there. And then eventually, because he has a schoolmate, it's also from that missionary school, and he went to Zhejiang University Medical School, and so he became a doctor. He didn't escape to Taiwan. He's still in Shanghai. So that his schoolmate was saving his life. So he just gave him some medicine. And at that time, American or British already become a #1 enemy in China, after, during the Korea War and after Korea War. So, but they still can, through Hong Kong, they can get some import medicine. Those doctors, they have their own friends, relatives in Hong Kong. They will send them something. You're still able to receive some imported some medicine. So he gave some medicine and treated TB. So eventually he was cured and he didn't die. And then talk about his family. His wife was a very beautiful woman, and with 3 boys, and got the Northwest, the coal mine. Over there was so bad. He didn't know. He's a dancing girl. He didn't know how to do any harsh labor. So he said, asked them, and said, do you have anything else I can do? So they offer her a job as a cook. And so she is cooking in the coal mine, but it's still very harsh. But for her kids, and they just barely have enough food. So that time, in charge of the coal mine is a communist officer, and then this officer's family is in the countryside, not in the coal mine, and so he just offered her. He said that you can be my not wife, because he said like a mistress, and I give you extra food to feed your 3 boys. And she just cannot, is no other way to make a living there, and for the kids. So she agreed with it. So that's what she able to manage it to raise the 3 kids. So after lots of years, I think, but before or after the Cultural Revolution even, but during the Cultural Revolution, because she was still in that coal mine with kids, and also she was a lover of this communist officer, so they were basically protected and didn't get any bad treatments. But Charlie and my grandma dead, but Charlie was living in basically the poverty, and he still, I think, it's not really cured the TB. He's still not very healthy, and he is weak. He cannot go do any physical labor work, so he couldn't find any decent job. So he still just did something here there. It's like a beggar basically. And sometimes, lots of times, he just coming to my house. My mother just feed him, and basically it's a very sad situation. But Red God didn't go after him because you're already down and out. They don't want to be the dead horse, so he didn't get anything. They know he cannot do anything, and also he was living in poverty, so they didn't go after him. So that's the situation, and he was. And then finally, I think after Cultural Revolution, and his wife and 3 kids all grow up, and they all back to the wife already retired, back to Shanghai, and so they live together, but they're still in the one room, very bad condition. And then until 1980, my aunt from America. Her husband also reverend or something, so Charlie asked that did they know that the priest, the American priest, he already went back to America. Finally, they found him, and actually in Bay Area, Hayward, not too far away. And because the priest is very old, but his son still in charge of that congregations. So they wanted to help in Charlie. Charlie is coming to visit him. So they told him he can apply for political asylum and to Taiwan, but not in America. And but he said that it's been that long, that many years. He said that my family still there, my son, my wife still there. He said that doesn't matter what happens, it's over. Whatever I treat miserably, I had a miserable life because I work for American Flying Tiger is interpreter. So that's the story. I was thinking about this in Kabul, and I just thinking about lots of people that work with Americans. It's like a history is a repeat.
It's a history repeating of working as an interpreter to help the United States, and you end up in a bad situation.
Whole life, So I don't know what has followed up, And for those people right now, I just honestly, I remember that Uncle Charlie's story.
Yeah. Wow. Well, as always, Amy didn't disappoint. The story is very topical for what we're about to talk about. Amy, thank you so much. I know it's painful sometimes to recall some of your family stories, but this one really does come right back to what we're talking about and what's taking place right now in Afghanistan. There are many interpreters who have helped the United States military and other jobs, folks who were helping with typing papers and running communications and things like that for the Americans, translating, and now they're in big trouble, living in a country that has been reclaimed by the Taliban. It's a very horrible situation they find themselves in. We are going to check in with our guest in just a moment. We want to tell you a little bit about Joshua Phillip. He is an award-winning investigative reporter with the Epoch Times. He is host of Epoch TV's Crossroads program. He is a recognized expert on unrestricted warfare, asymmetrical hybrid warfare, subversion, and historical perspectives on today's issues. He has more than 10 years of research and investigations on the Chinese Communist Party in his repertoire, and he knows about subversion and related topics. They give him a unique insight into the world global threat and political landscape involving China, and we would like to welcome him onto our program today. Let me push the right button, and we will put him on. Hello, Joshua. How are you?
Doing great. No shortage of big stories, at least, right?
Boy, not today, that's for sure. Amy just finished talking about the fact that when one of her relatives was in China, he did some work for the Flying Tigers and ended up, because he was a translator, ended up getting the short end of the stick in China. Well, we see that same exact situation taking place in Afghanistan right now. Some interpreters and some other support staff who help the Americans try to help the Afghan government. Now they're in serious trouble because the Americans have pulled out in a rather quick manner, I guess is the only way to put it. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels and a lot of things that are taking place now that have happened in history in the past.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate pattern. I mean, same thing happened with the Bay of Pigs fiasco, and same thing happened to a lot of the Vietnamese who helped us during the Vietnam War as well. And, unfortunate to see it happening again. Yeah, and actually on the China note, too, because we're going to talk about that, the Chinese Communist Party probably had a big hand to play in this, and they're going to have a big hand to play going forward, because just before this whole thing happened, guess what? The Chinese Communist Party invited delegates of the Taliban to go and visit China, and who knows what they were discussing, but we see this rapid takeover they've done. We see the diplomatic process already planned out, and we see them now engaging with the Taliban moving forward on infrastructure projects, very likely going to be starting soon.
Joshua, Nan wants to ask you a question in just a moment, but clarify something for me. Does not Afghanistan have quite a bit of resources that China might be interested in?
Well, this is the interesting picture with it. China, the Chinese Communist Party, has already been taking resources from Afghanistan. China went into Afghanistan as one of the coalition partners, but they weren't fighting the Taliban. They've been mining resources this whole time. And we've seen that behind the scenes, while the rest of the free world is fighting against terrorists, i.e. the Taliban, a designated terrorist organization, the Chinese Communist Party was engaging with them behind the backs of the coalition. And so it really shows where they were positioning themselves this whole time. The biggest thing they're going to get out of Afghanistan, one, is the propaganda front, the image of them, if they build infrastructure projects and partner with the terrorists, well, who's going to, if the war was to fight the terrorists, then who are the terrorists? It's going to be groups that are anti-terrorist, who they designated as extremists, essentially. And so the terrorists aren't a threat because they're working with the terrorists. They're going to make infrastructure projects, rebuild Afghanistan, and toot their horns about how successful they were where the U.S. failed. The big part, though, is they're going to probably build an oil pipeline going into China because it borders along Xinjiang where they persecute the Muslim Uyghurs, going into very likely Iran. And so Afghanistan plays a key spot in all that.
Josh, my understanding is that you are coming to the Bay Area to have some major activities. Based on what I read here, it's a launch meeting on August 29th between 11:30 to 2:30 in the Fremont Hill Country Club at Los Altos Hill. What are you going to talk about in that meeting? You are the keynote speaker, right?
Yeah, I'm the main speaker at that meeting, and I'll be out there pretty soon. Actually, coming up August 29th, as you mentioned. I will be speaking there, and the topic is going to be heavy China focused because, well, China's back in the news to say the least right now. They're holding assault drills near Taiwan. They're launching new programs under the Chinese Communist Party to target the wealthy. They're walking a lot of the paths now, even by name, that Mao Zedong walked to become chairman of the CCP. And it seems that everything that's happening, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's the economy, whether it's the virus, everything has some strong element of China in it. So I'll be going into a lot of this stuff.
My understanding is on the August 24th. So that's next Tuesday. About 4:30. You're going to have also an online panel discussion about cyber warfare from China.
That's right, actually, and Nan, you're going to be joining me on that if you're up for it. Yeah, that's going to be on August 24th, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, and this is going to be going into the whole cyber threat. President Biden just mentioned that the cyber threat could very easily escalate into a hot war, and we hear all this stuff about cyber attacks and cyber theft, and honestly, I think it still feels far away to a lot of people. We know the Chinese Communist Party is stealing our intellectual property. It feels far away. And so I wanted to put together this panel and get together experts like yourself and a few other key folks. Gordon Cheng is going to be there, a few others, to talk about what the big picture is behind the Chinese cyber threat, because this is the part of it that I think is most important and the part that's really not discussed typically.
Now, for the folks who are interested on the August 29th event, you can call the number 1-888-557-3280, extension 7. Again, that's 1-888-557-3280, extension 7. That's at Los Altos Hill on August 29th, 11:30 to 2:30, Fremont Hill Country Club. Now, talking about the cyber war. Hey, Josh, my understanding is, as far as I remember, 2010, China, it was a very famous event. China launched a cyber attack to Google's database and attack a bunch of foreign dissidents, Chinese foreign political dissidents, email. And how bad is the current situation?
I would say beyond your imagination, to put it nicely. So in 2010, the Chinese Communist Party's operation to spy on Google, they were trying to get into Gmail and other systems. That was called Operation Aurora. That was the one that really kind of made cyber a national security issue. Before that, I was reporting a bit on cyber. A lot of people were saying, why would you ever write about cyber? Who cares? It's stuff people are doing on the internet. What does this mean? That was back in 2010. The Chinese Communist Party, for them, cyber is very closely tied to their military operations. So if you get into the unrestricted warfare doctrine, I won't get too technical with this, but unrestricted warfare, basically this is how the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, wages an unseen war on the West. Now, Unrestricted warfare is things like business warfare, attacking individual companies. It's economic warfare, hitting the GDP of countries. Transaction warfare, going after transaction platforms, digital currencies, and so on. It's psychological warfare, changing the way you interpret information, culture warfare, you name it. We can go on and on with all these different systems, drug warfare, you name it. Basically what it is the CCP looks at what is the goal of war. If you were to wage a war on another country, what would you want to get out of it if you won? Now, what does it mean to win a war? What does it mean to control a country? You control you control their economy, you control their politics, you control their culture, you control their messaging. You control those 4 key areas, you dominate a country. Now, what is the CCP doing? What is one of the main stated goals of communism on that point, right? Seize the means of production. Which country controls the world's factories? Who controls the means of production? Chinese Communist Party in most cases. And if they don't control, they're trying to gain control of it. They view themselves as being on the upward trajectory, and the liberal democracy system of the world basically being on the downward trajectory. They view the China model, their system of government, as the future of the world. And that includes all their systems of social control, like the social credit system, where every single thing you do is monitored, where every single thing you do creates a citizen score that determines your freedom or oppression in the society. And so the CCP politically is pushing this all throughout Africa, through most of Latin America, through most of the Asia region. They're already very far along on this. Other countries, even in Europe, even some parts in the U.S., they're pushing a lot of this. They're able to have state-run companies go in and outbid competitors because they don't have to make a profit. In Australia, for example, they went in and they underbid below cost the price of the rail industry. They took over the rail industry because nobody could compete on pricing because they had to make a profit being private businesses. The CCP doesn't have to make a profit. Once they put all their competitors out of business, they bought the only remaining company, and now they dominate the market in the entire country. Step by step like this, they gain control of the GDP products of countries. And then who controls the finances of a country? Who controls the lifeblood of the country? The CCP. When it comes to information, who controls Hollywood? Most Hollywood films now co-produce their films with the Chinese Communist Party, because if they don't do it, they risk not getting into the China market. Most films now already abide by all the CCP's censorship laws, which includes things like not showing the CCP in a positive light, and not showing the CCP in a negative light, and not showing the U.S. military in a positive light. You have to support this whole Chinese idea of what they call socialism with Chinese characteristics, is the phrase they use for it. When it comes to political war, when they go and make business deals, the One Belt, One Road initiative, or these infrastructure programs, where they go into countries and they put into place these social control systems we've been talking about, like the social credit system, high-tech systems for social control. And you can expect this happening in Afghanistan very soon. Once they go into these countries, they set aside maybe 1/10 of their budget for bribery. They bribe local officials. They do what's called castle diplomacy, where they build them mansions. They buy them off, use sex traps, you name it, anything to get control of the local politics. Business deals through individuals with their family members, trips to China, information on stocks and so on, all that's on the table. And so the CCP has found that they can manipulate the materialist interests of the free world in order to subvert these countries and get them to serve the Chinese Communist Party's agenda. And when you get into unrestricted warfare, basically it's a whole slew of tactics meant to achieve that goal.
Amy, you must have something to say here, given your experience in China. I can't wait for your question.
Yeah. Hi, Josh. Welcome back. And I have a question. Yesterday, I received an email from T-Mobile because my cell phone was the carrier is T-Mobile. They told me on the data breach, about 50 million customers, including me, and all the data and was somebody hacked. So I don't know. I'm not sure. They didn't say, who did that or whatever. But I don't know is it China behind or not. But I do know is that those data, whoever got it, and will sell to CCP or whoever. So they will control everything. Because right now people were thinking, some people say, oh, yeah, I listen to all those cyber attacks, this, all the business, all the government, nothing to do with personal. But we use the phone and everything, all the information, your banking, everything, right? So basically, they can control everything about you once they get all your information. So we can, but they didn't offer us anything. Say, we can do something about it. So what we can do to prevent it?
There's unfortunately not much you can do to prevent it. And
wow.
This is one of the hard realities of cybersecurity. There's a sliding scale with cybersecurity where more security means less privacy. It's very difficult to have good cybersecurity unless you just trample people's privacy, which is one of the big concerns we have as I think cyber becomes more of an issue and as they look to create stronger cybersecurity programs. Well, one of the challenges the federal government has is that in order to implement good cybersecurity standards, they need to work with the private industry. The private industry, they can't fully control in this regard. And we also don't want the government taking all of our information from private businesses. Already we see the bar on that getting pushed a little too close for comfort for most of us, I'd say. At the same time, with these cyber attacks, one important thing with this is the Chinese Communist Party, I mentioned the social credit system, which basically, here's how it functions. It's all the different systems to collect data on people in China. Everything, what you buy at the local store, your travel through the country, your data on your phone. Keep in mind your phone can monitor audio, video, everything. It's why if you have a conversation next to your smartphone, you might start seeing advertisements for the products you're discussing showing up on your ad feeds on social media. It's why even with GPS location, for example, they can triangulate and find which other social media users are in close proximity to you. Now, imagine if that type of control system falls into a government's hands, especially a totalitarian regime like the Communist Party of China. It means that every single thing you do, who you're friends with, who you're around, who you're meeting with, what you're saying, what you buy, what you don't buy, everything, every single thing about you is known by the government. In China, as I mentioned, under the CCP social credit system, that picture of you creates a social score that determines whether you're free or not free, to the extent that you could even be brutally persecuted if you violate some of its relies on religion or political beliefs or whatever. But they're also building the same system on foreigners, including Americans, including people in Africa, including Europeans, including Latin Americans. And the reason for this is, while they're exporting this system, already in Darwin, Australia, they put it in place. Already in every country where they're building this One Belt, One Road initiative, they're pushing it. Because as they build this critical infrastructure, this underlying infrastructure, these technologies are built into it. Already a lot of big tech platforms sell data, because they collect a ton of data on you, to Chinese companies. And under the Chinese Communist Party system, like the national security law, not the one in Hong Kong, but a different one, under the national security law, all data needs to be secure and controllable by the Communist Party of China. There's no such thing as data being collected the Communist Party can't access. They're building profiles on people, and as they go to different countries and implement this stuff, your profile, which they have from data collected like this, from things like the OPM breach, Office of Personnel Management, having the security clearance records of all of our members of government and anyone with security clearance in the U.S., banking records, financial records, you name it, medical records. The CCP wants all of it, and they're getting a lot of it through cyber attacks or through other means or direct purchases through foreign companies with major platforms collecting your data online. All of this is creating, I think, is creating this future that the CCP is trying to create. And so that's the bigger picture, I'd say, with these hacks, these cyber attacks like this.
Well, and also, they don't even have to hack. They don't have to perpetrate a hack to get some of this information. 23andMe or any of the sites where you find out your genealogy. As I understand it, China has access to all of that information.
Yeah, there's been some very concerning information about that. So a lot of those genealogy products, I wouldn't know off the top of my head which ones, but I think it's like almost all of them, but maybe like one. Almost all of them they're sending your DNA samples, which is usually just saliva. They're sending it to China to be processed in Chinese labs. And that is a concern because then you're dealing with biometric data. That ties into things like the CCP's biowarfare programs, which this may sound far out, but you can look it up online, don't believe me. Biowarfare programs, they can create targeted bioweapons based on DNA sequences. And so certain races, they could create bioweapons to target, for example. This was one of the reasons why, when this data first started coming out, the U.S. government at the time, I think it was under Trump, they actually banned the U.S. military from using those DNA tests, those genealogy tests, because of that. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Even with the COVID test, there were reports that some of the data was being sent to Chinese labs as well. And of course, they were taking DNA swabs and so on. That a lot of that data was being processed there as well, which also raises a lot of concerns over what they're doing with that data.
So, Josh, you've given us a whole bunch of horrible things to think about. Any idea how we can combat this?
Well, I'd say on the brighter note of everything we're seeing, the trajectory of, let's say, where the rest of the world is going as it relates to the CCP and its goals, it is really kind of making an interesting turn. I would say that, let me go back a little bit. Prior to Trump, I didn't really think much could be done about it. I think Trump took a very hard stance against the Chinese Communist Party, a very proactive stance. And this wasn't a partisan issue. Going back to George Bush and Richard Nixon and the Clintons and Obama, they all had different ways of dealing with the CCP, which ranged from direct engagement and giving them access to pretty much everything, to just having kind of a lenient do as thou wilt approach, which was mainly Obama's approach. Trump came in and really hit them pretty hard. Sanctions, tariffs, the whole nine yards, going after them for human rights abuses. It's actually interesting to watch that the Biden administration has continued a lot of this, including sanctioning CCP officials for human rights abuses. But this is now becoming also a global issue, which is one of the things we've seen emerge from this whole, global pandemic problem, especially when people started wanting investigations into the origin of the virus. We've seen India do a 180 with the Chinese Communist Party and really start to challenge it. Japan now is talking about defending Taiwan, which is a huge shift. Australia has shifted. A lot of Europe has shifted. Even a lot of countries, as I mentioned, Latin America, Africa, who've made really close ties with the CCP as it relates especially to the One Belt, One Road initiative. They're starting to see what the deal is, that these are debt traps they've fallen into and that they don't want to renew or continue a lot of the deals. They realize they get ripped off and they don't want to get ripped off again. There's a shift taking place around the world. And even within China, the markets, the political situation, infighting among politicians, the social situation of Chinese people really not being afraid of the CCP like they used to be, is all leading, I think, to the CCP being one, I think on one side, very unstable. But a lot of its power doesn't come from that. It's two sides. It's deeply destabilized right now, to the extent that if it collapsed tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised. But it has a lot of power because Wall Street pours money into it. There's a lot of foreign investment pouring into China right now. And at the same time, you also have, a lot of people have been subverted by the Chinese Communist Party. Journalists, academics, think tanks, politicians, you name it, through things like the United Front Work Department, which works full-time to subvert people in other countries. And so I think this is the dual picture we're looking at with the CCP. And there is a lot of hope with it as well.
Now, Josh, let me ask you this. I remember, as far as I remember, back in 2015, our federal government U.S. Office of Personnel Management it got a data breach. It was identified later. It was a cyber attack from China, and the office lost more than 21.5 million people's personal information, and the report kind of indicated from the FBI that the Chinese government was kind of behind the cyber attack. Are you aware of any federal government's action that's being taken to prevent this kind of situation from happening again?
Well, yeah, so the Office of Personnel Management, I mentioned briefly, basically does the security clearances for U.S. personnel. And so basically they get you and they sit you down in a chair and they put sensors all over your body, like lie detector machines, and make you as uncomfortable as possible, and then ask you every uncomfortable question you could possibly imagine, like far out, ridiculous things. I have friends who've done it and told me about it. Anything you've done in your life that you regret, anything you've done in your life that you're embarrassed about is going to be written in those records. Anything that a government like the CCP would want to use to blackmail you would also be in those records. And one of the big concerns is that if that fell into the CCP's hands, which it does appear it did, all the data points to the Chinese Communist Party having stolen that data, means they can use this to go and basically blackmail, bribe, or even use to subvert people based on known weaknesses. The CCP's, and this is getting a little off, but the CCP's programs to compromise people are different from the West. So in the U.S., they say the motivations for espionage is the acronym MICE: money, ideology, coercion, ego, basically. Under the Chinese Communist Party, they look to subvert what they call moral weaknesses, lust. So maybe you'll go there and meet a pretty girl and turns out she's underage, or things like that. And you'll wake up and you'll find the whole thing had been video recorded. That's a very common tactic in China. Maybe you've made a pretty girl and it becomes your girlfriend, and she just has a strange interest in, for example, nuclear weapons plans, which actually happened to a contractor in Hawaii, where he had a Chinese girlfriend and she was asking him to steal nuclear weapons information for her. And he was of course prosecuted for espionage because of that. It could be things like fame, that you're an academic, you've been waiting your whole life to get some recognition. Suddenly you get invited to China and they roll up literally the red carpet for you. And you sit down and Chinese students are asking you the most intelligent questions you've ever heard in your life. And they start asking questions like, you're so smart. Why is it that other Americans are so hostile to the Chinese Communist Party? Why is it that they're afraid of the rise of China? And over time, they start to subvert you. It could be business deals for you or your family members, and things that once you get into, you may not realize what's even happening until you're so far in that you find you can't turn back. It's things like this that they can use that data for. And in terms of pushing back against it, unfortunately, very little is being done. I mean, if you look at the public officials who are known to have had individuals within their teams who were Chinese spies, talking about senators and so on. If you talk about members of our government who have known to have been maybe slept with Chinese spies, and there are cases of it, and they're not getting fired, they're still on commissions that allow them to get information on national defense, nothing's being done. And This is one of the real unfortunate realities of this, that there's a whole lot of subversion taking place, down to the point where even local city council members, you'll be hard set to find one who hasn't at least been invited to China by these front groups. That it's on such a large scale that the people who would do something about it very likely there's maybe too many of them who have been compromised to want to do anything about it, I think.
Joshua, we're running out of time. Amy, do you have a final question for Josh?
Yes, one more question. So the American people, like we live in here, but they got all our information, all the data, and whether we can do to prevent it, or whether we still can live in the same life?
Well, this is the hard reality. Whether it's China, whether it's your government, whether it's your social media platform, everything you do online is monitored. There's no such thing as your data not being monitored. Next time you install an app on your phone, look at the information it's able to access. Maybe it's your notes, maybe it's your microphone, maybe it's your call list, maybe it's voice systems or camera. If you give them access to those things, they can monitor that. And these are oftentimes free platforms. And if it's free, the product isn't the app, the product is you. You are the product. And all that data they collect on you is what they're using to sell or through whatever means. Yes, a lot of that's used just for business interest, but unfortunately a lot of it is also falling into foreign government hands, like that of the Chinese Communist Party, which is using it in the worst ways possible. I'd say the solution to this is just treat any device like a public forum. Don't put anything on your phone or computer that you wouldn't want the whole world to know, basically, and just understand what.
That's very good advice, Josh.
Wow, that's great. Mm-hmm.
Yes, once again, I would just make one more announcement for Josh's speaking program at Fremont Hill Country Club. That's August 29th, 11:30 to 2:30 p.m. And if you want more information, try to book it. It's 1-888-557-3280, extension 7. Again, the number is 1-888-557-3280, extension 7. That event is at Los Altos Hill, California.
I regret to tell you, Josh, we are completely out of time. I want to thank you for joining us again. We have to have you back again. You are a font of information we just have to hear.
Hey, my pleasure, and any time.
Thank you so much for being with us. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you as well.
All right, we're going to take our break and then satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Etheric Networks has been providing internet for over 12 years to the Central Coast. One of only a handful of internet service providers that signed the industry letter to the FCC supporting net neutrality and is dedicated to maintaining a secure, free, and open internet experience. Join the Etheric Network and experience our superior service. Our contracts are friendly and simple to understand. We offer predictable monthly pricing. We have local technical support that's available 7/24. Importantly, Etheric offers the same speed on upload as download. We offer a symmetric service. Call 650-399-4200 or visit etheric.net online. That's ETHERIC.net. Etheric is a Bay Area-based company, and workers currently own 20% of our stock. We offer living wages, and our engineers are responsive. We often can install people within a week or in emergencies the next day. Call 650-399-4200 or visit etheric.net online. Don't forget to mention KSCO to receive your $239 discount on installation equipment. Happy surfing.
Do you need a professional roofing contractor? Look no further. When prompt service, quality workmanship, value, and integrity are important factors to your roofing project, Primo Roofing is the contractor of choice. Primo is a family-operated business, and they are determined to apply those family values to the way they handle each and every one of their roofing customers. No job is too big or too small, whether it's a hole in the roof or a whole new roof. Primo Roofing is the only name you need to remember. Call Primo Roofing or visit their website. They'd be happy to provide you with a Primo Roofing experience.
Chef Ben here from the Back 9 Grill and Bar at the Pasatiempo exit, sharing with you our family meal. A full rack of ribs, a whole smoked chicken, a pound of pulled pork, and plenty of barbecue sauce, served with a full quart of baked beans, coleslaw, macaroni and cheese, dinner rolls, onions and pickles, including dessert, homemade brownies, and a pint of Marianne's vanilla bean ice cream. Feeds 4 to 6 hungry people, ready in 15 minutes. See you at the 9.
Amy and I will be back with the second hour of China Uber Alice. We'll be talking about China's relationship with a town.
Big rig catching fire just south of Esperanza Road. There are several large rocks in the slow lane of eastbound Highway 152 near Dinosaur Point Road. They're working to get those out of the lanes, but in the meantime, the traffic is messed up there, too. The weather forecast for today is sunny with highs in the 60s and 70s, along with light west-southwest wind increasing to 9 to 14 miles per hour, with wind gusts as high as 18 miles per hour. Boaters forecast for today, southwest winds becoming west 10 to 15 knots. This afternoon, wind waves around 2 feet, southwest swell 2 to 3 feet at 17 seconds, and west swell 3 to 5 feet at 11 seconds. The time now is 6 minutes after 3 p.m., and that means it's time for the second hour of China Uber Alice with Amy Howe, Nan Su, and Bill Graff.
China Uber Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall food court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! I had some sushi from Sprouts yesterday. It was tremendous. But then again, I'm a fan of sushi anyway. So welcome to the second hour of China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO. I'm Bill Graff, along with my regular guests, Amy Howe, who hit the nail right on the head today with her story about how folks who might have helped the United States in the past ended up being treated badly. The same thing is happening now in the country of Afghanistan. Amy hit it right on the head to lead off our discussion on the show today. Nan Su and I have been talking off the air during the break about, look, let's just jump right into it. We have heard from Joshua Phillip in the first hour talking about how China operates. Now we find out that China has been quietly operating in Afghanistan for quite some time. A little scary.
Oh yeah. They have always been their friends from Taliban, right? That's the only reason. And 2 weeks ago, even before the fall of Afghanistan government, they already invited Taliban leaders to Beijing and openly,
yeah.
And that's even before the fall of Kabul, right?
I was thinking of Amy when I read that story about the Taliban being invited by China and them talking to each other. I thought to myself, man, this is not going to work out well for the Taliban. That's the first thing I thought of. The Taliban is not making a particularly good deal for themselves. Second of all, China is just going to exploit these people no end.
What do you think? Hey,
Bill.
Amy, and Bill, what do you think China want to get from Taliban?
I think they want. What do you think, Amy?
Well, I talked to some people, and Chinese people, I think yesterday through the WeChat. That guy, my friend, used to do business in Afghanistan, selling those portable stoves. Use oil or propane gas, all kind of stuff. Because after 9/11, basically, Afghanistan, they need everything. So it's a good opportunity, business opportunity. So my friend is just jumping into it to get to that. He told me he just really, really so scared now after America going to pull out. He said that actually they have a lot of those infrastructure company too. And they're working there, building bridges, everything. They really need the American protect them. So I say, well, right now the Chinese new government make a friend with Taliban. He said, well, that's a part of a deal. The point they're talking about is that if Taliban not support or infiltrate the two Uyghurs and use the religion, and so China will give support, will give them money, everything, supply. And but if that's the condition, that's the they are negotiate upon. If they do support and or infiltrate the two Chinese Uyghurs, and so China will cut off. Interesting, So I was thinking, now what do you think? You think after American pull out now, you think Americans still, financially, still going to support the Taliban?
I don't think so.
No.
Not at all.
The American government only supported Afghanistan government. We never supported
the
Taliban.
I know, but they say that the reason they come back, and that now they have a lot of changes.
Yeah.
New Taliban, for instance, for women's rights.
The new Taliban.
New Taliban we're talking about.
Yeah.
New Taliban was completely different. They even opened the door. They will send the people to learn new technology. Before they don't allow to have a cell phone or anything, right?
Yeah.
And but they will allow lots of about 10 different changes.
So basically,
announced.
what Amy,
Interesting.
basically what I hear from you that Chinese regime made a deal with this new Taliban or whatever you call it, Taliban or new Taliban.
The new and improved, kinder, gentler Taliban.
Improved the Taliban.
Yes, new Taliban, they call themselves.
Right. So basically, if the new improved Taliban will support the genocide taking place in Xinjiang and restore their support to the Uyghurs, then Chinese regime is going to give them money, right?
Yeah. And they're also talking about the Chinese have already invested, the Belarus project, invested lots of money in Afghanistan. So they want to make sure this not go down the drain. So they need some kind of security.
Amy, you're right. And they've also invested in other countries like Pakistan, where they're heavily Muslim.
Pakistan, now you're talking. Yeah. They have a Afghan Taliban, Pakistan Taliban. It's two different Taliban, but they all call Taliban. The student they call in religion. They want to be a true Muslim.
So
they think others they are not pure.
Let me ask the elephant in the room question here. Okay, does the Taliban have a ideological motivation to protect the Uyghurs and try to help them, or is the Taliban willing to sell out their beliefs, religious beliefs, to ignore the Uyghur situation? That's really my question, because that's what's gonna go on in Afghanistan, either or, I think.
Yeah, that's a big question. I think it's going to waiting for a test. So we're going to see how they work together. Of course, they're going to ask a very high price from Chinese Communist regime, and I wouldn't think that Chinese regime will be hesitate to give them the kind of money they requested. So that's if they saw that.
But along those lines, Nan, will China insist that the Taliban ignore the Uyghurs?
I think maybe that's one of the reasons. But keep in mind, China also has a lot to ask from Taliban. So it may be, there are different kind of negotiation going on. So China, go ahead, Amy.
One more complicated issues, talking about Iran and Afghanistan, because the Taliban, most of the Shia, Iran, the Sunni. So you cannot ask the gazelle and to fall in love with the lion. It's never going to happen.
Well, I that part, it's the least worry of me.
No, you're talking about the interest for the oil pipe.
Yeah, it's the interest. It's the interest. It's money.
Afghanistan has nothing, no oil, but they go through then, the pipe go through then to China. But the Iran, they have a pipe, have an oil. But the Afghanistan only have an opium. That's all they have.
Well, when you have enough
so it's
money,
not that simple.
Well, there is a common border, though.
There is a common border.
47 miles.
China.
Yeah. So basically, between Afghanistan and China, there's about like 94 kilometers of a
47 miles.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't really worry about the debate. The conflict between Shia and Sunni. I mean, for thousands of years they lived together, right?
No, they never.
They fight. Yeah, they have problems with each other. Yeah, they fight against each other, but they also live together. So it just depends on what's the price.
Don't give up.
I think that's just really depends on what's the price.
Well, like I said, the reason I asked this to both you and Amy, I'm particularly interested in Amy's thoughts on the Uyghurs and how China. It's a real sore spot with China, really sore. They go to great lengths to deflect away from the Uyghur situation in China. The Uyghurs are Muslims. And what I'm trying to understand is China obviously wants to fill the void where the United States has left, and the same void that the Soviet Union left, and the same void that the British left, right? China's trying to step in. But
this region always so complicated. So right now, China also afraid of both Afghanistan Taliban and the Pakistan Taliban will become one country.
Okay, here's my answer.
So that will be complicated. The Chinese, they want this Belt Road project. Their dream to control the regions. I don't know. It's just very complicated. I don't think they're that happy about that. You know, Russia already defeated them a long time ago. You know, they know. You just cannot go to Afghanistan. Never alive.
Let me ask you something, because you just hit on a question I was going to ask you and Nan just a minute ago. Here's the thing. The British tried it. The Russians tried it. The United States tried it. And now China's attempting to try it. Do you think China's going to have any better luck with Afghanistan than the other three superpowers I just mentioned? I mean, really,
no.
If the Taliban and the people that live in Afghanistan don't want you there or don't want to cooperate with you, they have a long and storied history of defeating major world powers in their own territory.
Yes.
Well, first of all,
with China too.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, here's my take on this. Never underestimate how Chinese government, the regime, it's capable to do. I mean, this is a regime has entirely no moral principle.
Well, I thought the same way about the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
That's a question. Well, keep thinking.
Afghanistan said goodbye, you guys, and the Russians got defeated in 2 winters.
Yeah, but think about this.
You're so right. You know, I asked the same question with this businessman doing business in Afghanistan. She said that she first met a guy work for Russian, and then he told her, American not gonna be long. You see it. You know. That's a long time ago, he told me. So now it's the Chinese turn. So you will see it.
Now, I will say so. I will say, never underestimate how bad this regime can do. I mean, this is a regime, they work, they steal industries
Absolutely.
from the entire Western world in the past 20 years with every people in the Western world just looking at it. I mean, they're just taking all that away from us. Now, about your worry.
Because we are stupid. We are very naive.
Okay. Now, think about this. Before Taliban sending their delegation openly to China to sit down with Chinese foreign minister, you don't think they have a previous some sort of agreement before they even go there to show to the world they are going to meet? You don't think that Taliban will actually worry about how Uyghurs is going to look at them? It's all already settled. Otherwise, they wouldn't even go there.
Well, I might agree with you on that point. But I'm just saying that the finest conquerors on the planet Earth were the British for a while, right?
Oh yeah,
the British got handed their hats in Afghanistan. Then come along the mighty USSR, back when it was the USSR, not just Russia, and the USSR got handed its hat in the Khyber Pass by the Afghanis. Then the United States showed up. 20 years we spent 20
Still cannot.
years the mighty United States military spent. Hey, we got to hand it our
They
hats.
cannot make a one
I don't think
decent
China.
government out of there.
I don't think China
Gee.
understands how bad, hardcore people these people in Afghanistan really are.
It's just the price tag, Billy. It's just the price tag. Now think about there was a tremendous price tag the Chinese regime is going to be willing to pay. Now, first of all, think about it. I think the most important thing. First of all, you have to understand what's the most priceless power for Chinese government.
Yeah.
They want to take the Afghanistan. See, they want in the past week, the entire. If you read the Chinese media, all the state-owned Chinese media, every one of them, it's talking about number one, America. It's a paper tiger. Yeah, because Taliban defeated American troops by AK-47, in the cave, right? So number two, America is the leader of destructive force, while China is a constructive force. That's the propaganda, right? Now, and number three, of course, they're talking about their eye on Taiwan. Now think about this. Why China is doing that? What's the biggest goal? I think they are already trying. They will pay a lot of price. Not really. They are for resource. That's of course. But the first thing they want to pay for image of a global leadership that's challenging America's superpower.
You said that on other shows, and I happen to agree with that. They're willing to pay for prestige.
Yeah, because they already realized in the next 30 years they wouldn't be able to do what they did in the past 20 years to get the investment, technology, and market from the Western world. They need to build up their own global system. They need all these developing countries to line up, follow their wagon.
Yeah.
So that's the number one thing they want. And I think they were willing to pay a lot of things.
The tool in the third world, it created. We are the leader of the third world. The small one to be, but there's nothing happened. So that's probably going to be a China's Waterloo. I think.
Well, let's see.
Totally the Belt Road project, everything else.
Amy, you're making a good point here.
Know.
Well, let's find out what Dick thinks, because Dick's called to put his opinion in the mix here. Dick, thanks for calling.
Hey, this is pretty interesting what you guys are speculating on. I mean, it's quite a dichotomy. It's like two of the most diabolical ideologies that are combining. They're proposing combining and working together. I mean, it's like the first world meets the third world.
Right.
The average education in Afghan is very low. And I basically think China will use Afghan as a safety valve for their domestic, if they have any domestic problems, they can just, say, okay, world, we're going to take over Afghanistan. We'll show you how it's done, And they'll get, if they have any, Nan Su knows about how much their domestic tranquility is at risk of overthrowing them because of the size of it. And if they're not happy, they'll just go into Afghanistan, take it over. They won't. But in the meantime, I imagine the leaders of Afghanistan are just going to get fat and dumb and lazy, and taking all the Chinese money and look the other way with the Uyghurs and of course forget about Mohammed and all that stuff. And greed and money corrupts everybody. And these guys, I mean, really, they're uncivilized. They're barbaric. China will slaughter them, eventually, if they start working with them. It's like David and Goliath for, What do you guys think of that idea?
Well, I think you're making a good point, except for the fact that history sort of proves you wrong. I mean, the mighty Soviet Union could not get it done in Afghanistan at all.
Well, but
And
think about
before
this.
that, the British Empire, right?
Yeah, the entire
So
British
that's-
Empire
they
couldn't
think,
conquer
yeah,
Afghanistan.
Don't forget about that.
But however,
everywhere they can go.
look at the history that Josh just talked about. Chinese government has been working on both sides
No, I understand
of Afghanistan government and Taliban. I'm not sure if you remember.
But see,
remember.
but that for that very reason, I think Dick makes a good point. It might be the unholy alliance of all time.
And also, Bin Laden was trained
There you go.
by Chinese
CIA.
army. Think about this. Bin Laden was trained by Chinese army when he was very young. He went to China to receive
a
training.
CIA.
Well, he also came to the United States, if you remember, for a while.
Yeah, but think
Yes.
about this. China doesn't have all this problem working with all people with all different religions. As long as you're outside of China. Say, if you're inside of China, you believe in any religion, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
But Chinese regime sent a delegation even to Vatican.
Selective enforcement of their own religious views. Dick, you've started our conversation rather well. Thank you.
Well, before you cut me off, are you there?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. My phone is making noises. I just wanted to say, I understand what you're saying. They'll work with anybody, sure, but I mean, as long as the Taliban, get fat, dumb, and happy with all their money, and they don't realize, oh, wait a minute, fellas, we're on a caliphate here. We're supposed to take over the world. We're not supposed to be taking over ourselves. I mean, they're both going to be plotting how to, overthrow the other the whole time. It's
That's a pretty interesting point, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, I say let them have at it. Myself, I just as soon have them fight it out.
To have a problem, yes.
Well,
We don't
the
need that.
paranoia in the United States, okay, about the Taliban and / Al Qaeda is totally overblown. I mean, you look at these guys. Sure, they got billions of dollars of our. They all traded their AK-47s for their for the American Colt. And the thing is, they're there now, and they're going to get real lazy. They're in control. This is the first time, and the United States is afraid that they're going to strike us again. And the thing is that the strike we had in 9/11, okay, it was from the Bin Laden family, the Bin Laden money mostly, and 20 guys that got in here. Basically they were all on the FBI watch list, and they basically said, okay, fellas, this is what we came up with. Here, here's your little document packet. This is how you do it. These are the flights. Go learn how to take off on a jet and not land. And
well, I think Dick, I think you're making a good point here. The fact that our intelligence service somewhat failed. I mean, look, if the guys that were learning how to take the airplane off and fly it, but not worrying about how to land it, should have been a big old red flag.
We could have stopped. We could have stopped that.
Yeah.
I mean, Pakistan. Let's face it. We got so much. They got nukes in Pakistan, so I mean, we're tippy-toeing with Pakistan all the time, and the Pakistanis are using Afghanistan, as a release valve for their jihadist internal.
Yeah.
And they have the nukes. So, I mean, I say let them have at it. They're going to be at each other's necks constantly, and at their backs with the knives. Well,
on that note, Dick, I got a full board, and you've made your point very well this afternoon. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Thank you, Dick.
All right, let's move on and talk to who's next? Gordy. Gordy's calling from, where is Gordy's line? Gordy's line is line number 3. All right, Gordy, you're on KSCO.
Yes, I am. I'll cut to the chase here. your last caller touched on an issue. I see the Muslim nations, plural, getting into Pakistan in control of a nuclear weapon, and the eventuality I see here is Pakistan will have no problem dropping an atom bomb on China, and they may do this first before China even thinks about how to respond to this. That's what I see coming here. So I'd like for you to talk with Amy and Nam and see what they think about this. Because they think of themselves as tribes, and they look for power of the tribe. The ultimate leader of the tribe is the one that they respect through power and nothing else. So anyway, I'll leave it up to you to discuss this, and thank you very much for being there. I really appreciate this.
Gordy, we appreciate your call. Thank you. Good question. So what do you think? What do you think, guys?
Yeah, first of all, I think let's just
Do you think
try
Pakistan's got the cojones to drop one on China?
No, I don't think so. It's think about this. China, they really want these people to have the nuke. They never worry about North Korea. That's just right at the border of China to have a nuke. And they, not to forget, talk about different kind of Muslim belief in the Muslim world. China worked with Palestinian. China worked with Iraq. China was working with Iranian.
Pakistan,
every part of it. They work with every part of it. I think it's really about the money talk. China has a huge gain if they can have their oil pipe to build through Afghanistan and reach Iran. And Iran doesn't have to send their oil by the sea to reach China anymore. Their oil, once it's produced, it will go from their oil field directly to China. So if those can be established, those pipelines can be built. And also, not to forget that recently, Iranian leaders already start talking about building the high-speed bullet train in the Central Asia. Who is going to build it?
I love it. I love the fact that they're talking about doing that, and we couldn't get a bullet train from San Francisco to Fresno.
Yeah, but who is going to build it? Who is behind?
China's going to build it.
That's it. You think it's impossible? It's already been done in many
China has
substantial extent.
China has bullet trains that go all the way across the continent.
That's right. So they will reach the Persian Gulf with the oil pipes and bullet trains. Think about this: how much money they are willing to spend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
but don't forget what's happened to the bear and what's happened to the elephant. Russia and India.
Yeah.
Well, this is what it is. There will be regional conflict in the Central Asia among Russia and China and India. Now, but however, think about this: by control Afghanistan, and also heavily influence the Pakistan, China, and also with their operations in Myanmar. So China has already built enough pressure from the northern border of India. Now, Russia, this is what I'm thinking, maybe United States is able to, or with enough effort, probably very high price tag, try to get Russia to be on a neutral position.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Putin he's never been neutral on anything.
So what do you think about the Pakistan Taliban? Yeah, they are not majority there.
Yeah, they are not majority. If China gave them enough money, we'll keep them quiet, basically. Right?
Then but
it's all about money.
Sunni. 98% is Sunni. So Pakistan will not stand for that. So they probably Afghanistan and the Taliban. They have a lot of problems.
Right. Think about China has been working with Iraq and Iran both. That's Sunni and
Well, let's find out what Andres has to say.
But the bigger thing is the religion, because they don't believe the communist. They believe Allah. So that's
religion may end up being
no.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it works out. Let's check in with Andres, who's called us from Pasatiempo today. Andres, you're on KSCO.
Hi, guys. I'm a first-time caller. Nan Su, Amy Howe, and Bill Graff. You guys are wonderful. You guys are like the Radio Free Europe of our time, spreading light on.
Well, you have just made an observation that I've never heard before.
Radio Free.
Well, and I can offer a little bit of a different perspective because I'm of Baltic extrapolation. My parents, basically immigrated from the Baltic states, escaping communism. So I very well know, how it all works, and I try to stay in tune with that. But yeah, I wanted to thank you guys and Josh Stevens too for coming on. That's awesome, and you guys are brave, very brave.
Well, tell me, what's your take then? What do you, since you have a slightly different perspective than ours, tell us what you think. Do you think China and the Taliban can form the alliance that both are hoping for and not shoot each other?
Well, I think China's going to take advantage of the situation, and they're going to use the Taliban, for their gains. And obviously it's a very unholy alliance. Basically they're gonna just say, you Taliban, you were useful, but in the grand scheme of things, China is set to take over the world at this stage.
It's interesting. We see what they have done around the world. For instance, took over the railroads in Australia. Made life so easy and so difficult at the same time for many companies, large companies in China itself. China can make or break.
Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah, sure. And so you see how China operates around the world, and I tell you, out of all the people that I would not want to try to conquer or control on this planet, it's the people in Afghanistan. They are just
definitely. Definitely, and I know people who have served in the Soviet military. Unfortunately, they got trapped on the USSR side, and they served in the military there. And they'll tell you that it was no fun there for sure. And as far as the Baltic states go, I can tell you that unfortunately their governments too are being very influenced by the overall, I think, globalist objective, together with the CCP. And in Estonia, for instance, you have, since 2004, the Confucius Institute alive and well at Tallinn University, among other things, the Open Society Institute, George Soros, and these major players in the world these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that of course we've had that same situation in the United States, off and on for quite some time now. So.
Hey, before I leave the discussion, I just wanted to mention that, I have some experience with Kazakhstan, being that my girlfriend's from there. And, basically, as Nan Su mentioned, Central Asia is becoming a major part of the Belt and Road Initiative, and China is building that railroad right through Kazakhstan. And so Kazakhstan traditionally has been caught between a rock and a hard place, with Soviet Russia and with China. And traditionally they've sided more with Russia, because they became part of the Soviet Union and they speak a common language, but we'll have to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, it's a situation we should probably watch, huh?
Well, sure, and I listen to what she says, and she speaks to the people in Kazakhstan. So, anyways, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for calling. We appreciate it. Okay, let's. Whoops, what happened there? I don't know what happened to on. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so let's talk to Dan in Pacific Grove. Dan, you're on KSCO and China Uber Alice.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great show. I really appreciate what you do. It's been helpful to me holding for a few minutes and opening. I'd like to provide briefly my sense of things, and as you're discussing it, and it occurs to me just now that the Chinese, was it the Qin dynasty that united China, the various groups in China? Perhaps we should say tribes.
You mean that 2,200 years ago?
Yes.
Yes, that's a Qing dynasty.
Qing dynasty.
When we consider that the Chinese, as a people, have about 5,000 years of diplomatic, financial, and military experience.
That is true.
Very thoughtful and look ahead a long ways, farther than we do presently in our present culture. And I think my sense of things is that China would show up at the door of Afghanistan and say, let's work together. Let's stand together against these other countries that have been messing with you for centuries and us. And with some basis to that, enough that, and offer things that seem rather benign. And this may start to sound familiar to those who look back on the U.S. and China relations. Say, hey, let's do some business. Let's do business. We want to purchase this and that, as they've been doing in Africa. They're well embedded in Africa, in Australia, other parts of the world, certainly well embedded in the U.S., and with seemingly rather benign arrangements, relationships, and like a cancer.
It's China's United Front project.
That to work together and have time to size things up and start out a working relationship that's mutually beneficial, and say, no, we're with you. You have your government, we have ours. Let's work together, and we want to buy products from you. And we can help
Dan,
with this,
as you
we
started
can help
to
with
say.
that.
Dan, as you started to talk, to lay that out, that last paragraph you said, Nansu and I were nodding our heads. Yes, boy, does this sound familiar.
And I would say I would not bet money on anybody who underestimates the Chinese. I would not support their view. And I learned that growing up in Oakland, in the Bay Area.
I think
friend
Amy will tell you the same thing, that that's not a good idea.
And I'm thinking, develop a rather benign and mutually beneficial relationship. Not take over, not roll in with military, but offer military assistance. They can actually offer a lot of technology, military training, medical, hospitals, a lot of things. Meet the needs and mutual defense understandings, perhaps. And we stand with you. And where is that? Where will those arrangements be in 2 years? And these different tribes around Afghanistan, I believe national government of Afghanistan, it's sort of a theory. It's kind of an abstraction, probably to most rural, remote Afghanis. It's true of other places I've been.
Well, Dan, I think
people about that.
Dan, I think there are two Afghanistans when it comes to the folks who live in the country and the folks who live in the cities. I think you'll find that, at least from what I've read, that it's in the rural areas, it's a whole different set of circumstances than if you're living in Kandahar.
That's my understanding, and perhaps it's not necessary to conquer local tribes in the mountains, as long as they're not trying to conquer you and you're getting what you want, and there's a workable arrangement. And again, 5,000 years of diplomatic history, people who do their homework, a different approach from what the British or the Russians or the U.S. has used in getting involved in that nation. And Afghanistan may wake up one day and find that a cancer has been growing in their society and look in the mirror and say, wow, I'm not looking as good as I used to. I'm going to get a checkup. See, I only have 30 days to live. I'm riddled with cancer. I'm not even... How many Chinese will, for different projects perhaps, perhaps relocate to Afghanistan. And so many, I'm thinking off the top of my head now, but I'm thinking a very different approach, perhaps, that starts out rather benign, and it becomes from a casual relationship to a marriage, and they've moved the whole family in. And
there you go.
Room
That's a good analogy, by the way.
So what do you think? What do you think about the corruption system in China and the Afghanistan? For 20 years we tried to make a good government for them, but never did. They're so corrupt.
You're speaking of China?
You think a Chinese, the CCP corruption system will conquer Afghanistan corruption to replace them, or what?
Well,
I don't get it.
Are you asking about Chinese the corrupted Chinese government in relation to Afghanistan?
Yes.
Chinese
CCP is very corrupt government,
Oh, I think in China, I think it's attempting to destroying a very rich culture and tradition and nation of people, and the people of China are hostages, as well as the people of Iran are hostages. And it's horrible. It's horrific, and you don't need you have explained that much better than I could. But that's certainly my perception, and I've learned from you, Amy, and I appreciate your sharing so much with us in that regard. I have another thought to throw on the table, then I'll clear out. I'll spare you that personal history of looking at things in different cultures, looking at things, observing something, and thinking, well, that doesn't make sense. And I got tired of hearing myself say that when I spent time in some third world countries, extended time, living in these places. I thought, well, of course it makes sense to that guy. I just don't understand it. So we look at the current debacle of the U.S. disengagement with Afghanistan and think, well, that doesn't make sense. What a series of blunders. Well, was it? Well, it does make sense to somebody. Who was it? Are they that stupid? I don't think so. I don't think that many people in Washington are that stupid. But they may be other things. And reflecting on something Joshua Phillip said earlier, and I stated before in different ways, but approached. But well, who's coming out ahead here? Oh, the Taliban and China. Who comes out ahead at our southern border with the current policies? Oh, the drug cartels and China. Is it stupidity, or is it who's on the payroll of who? Who's been compromised by who?
Oh, those are some good questions.
I'm serious.
Yes.
Are they all that stupid? No, they're not that stupid. Are they that treacherous and compromised? That seems more likely. Now it makes sense to me. I'm serious.
Well, I appreciate you laying that on the table. That's pretty clear, actually.
Something to think about. And a lot of things don't get talked about.
Yeah.
Except by real people like you and Amy and Joshua Phillip. And I asked Joshua Phillip a question. This is about a month ago. I called up and I told him, I said, I've been thinking. I haven't seen anything on this, so I've been thinking. It seems to me it makes sense that the Chinese Communist government would be working with the drug cartels south of our border. Do you have any thoughts on that? And he immediately said, oh, yeah, I've done 2 articles on that.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's fact.
Yeah.
I trust him. And so something to think about.
Well, Dan, we appreciate your call and your observations greatly. Thank you for calling.
You are welcome.
Take care. All right, let's move on to Rory. And where's Rory? Rory's online. Oh, I got to do Rory on the...
Yeah. Before we're taking the phone line, I want to ask, I want to make one comment about corruptions in Afghanistan. Well, apparently to me, the more corrupted the government is, it's better for Chinese government.
Oh, because they can bribe everybody.
Yes.
They can buy.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense to me as well, actually. All right, let's check in with Rory in Watsonville if I push the right button. Rory, you're on KSCO.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I agree with Dan. There's no accidents here. This is being done on purpose. Good luck mapping it out, but there's a trail. Just like when they had, remember Mohammed Atta? Remember that name?
I sure do. Wow.
Yeah, he was the head of the He was ahead of the guys flying the planes. Remember they had his laptop or his computer at the FBI office in Minneapolis? Because they seized it. They had him. Remember that field office was told to let it go? Don't open it. I don't know where it went. Okay? Somebody quashed that investigation into Muhammad Atta. They would have had the whole plan. Now, was it all just those 12 guys, 11 guys? Yeah, I still have my misgivings. But anyway, so right now, think about this wild card called population demographics with China. With their one-child policy, it's estimated that they've aborted 400 million children, 80% which were girls. They're going to have problems with their population.
Oh, they already do?
Guess what? Guess what? India doesn't practice national suicide, which is what abortion is. The other thing that abortion does is it does create an attitude and a climate of national suicide. Look at the United States. What happened to us? We just fell down and the will to live, the will to carry on, the will to self-sacrifice for the next generation is being eviscerated in parts of our society. And you just see people with, oh, well, who cares? Don't bother me with the facts. I can't deal with it. It's very craven and very selfish. So these are things, these population demographics are the wild card. So let's see what happens. And good luck to China or the CCP, because it's really not the Chinese people. It's the transnational criminal organization of the CCP. Good luck in Afghanistan. What's it called? The graveyard of civilizations? Or empires, excuse me. The graveyard of empires.
Yeah.
Never forget.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great ultimately met his demise over Afghanistan.
Well, that's what I've been saying through the whole show,
guys.
you know.
Yes.
Thank you for agreeing with me, Rory. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, good luck. Let's see what happens. Otherwise, we got to survive another year and a half till we can get the House back and start showing these lefty Democrats, show them the whip hand of the Republic. I hope Billy's listening. All right, you guys, all the best.
All right, thanks for calling. There you go. I just can't get it out of my head, and I know Amy has, said the same thing on this very program. The fact that, all of these really large, powerful countries have tried to, have their way with the Afghanis, and it just, man.
Yeah, my take on this is look at what's the possible downside.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, don't try to make any excuse that not to look at the downside of the fall of Kabul. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we need to prepare ourselves. Right? Look at what they had. Look at what they have done here. I mean, all these corporates, so far we're still not able to get them back from China.
That's right.
Right. So we never thought about all these problems could be created in our own society, but it is there now.
We have to think back, too, on what Amy has talked about in the past about her friends who've lost companies, relatives who have lost, whole livelihoods. She talked about it this morning. On the first part of our program about the fact that everything was going fine. This guy had 12 or 13 rentals. He was living in and next thing he knows, boom, they're gone.
Just look at a couple of programs ago. There was the Americans, Steve Shera.
That's right.
Yeah, his whole business in Beijing was taken away by...
and he was put in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's lucky he got out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Amy. He is lucky he got out and can live to tell about it. I'm still concerned for him because, the longer he keeps putting books out and the longer he keeps talking, the more dangerous it is for him, even out of China.
Yeah, I think we just need to look at all the possible downsides and prepare ourselves.
Right.
That's what I try to say.
Yeah. Hey, we're just about out of time. I got to go to my last commercial break here to get it in. I want to thank everybody for calling in. And we'll be back on China Uber Alice in just a moment.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
It's summer in Santa Cruz, and Ace Hardware is here for you. You know our stores at 849 Almar Avenue and 1214 Soquel Avenue. Now check out our big new store at 201 Front Street. All the brands you love: Weber, Traeger, Big Green Egg, Steel Outdoor Power, gas, battery, or electric, and service and repair for Steel tools. We'll even fix your window screens. And watch for our grand opening events August 21st and 22nd. Ace is the place in Santa Cruz.
When you need legal help, call on the Angel. It's a fact. We'll all need help to resolve a legal matter of one kind or another. When you find yourself in need of legal help, call on Angel Hess Attorney at Law. She's been helping people with legal documents for over 20 years. Now Angel has earned her master's in legal studies and Juris Doctorate and is licensed to practice law for you.
I'm Angel L. Hess, Attorney at Law. With my help, we can resolve your legal matters quickly and efficiently. I will listen to your needs and keep you informed of the pros and cons of each legal strategy. We will find the best course of action for you. And if I can't help you, then I will help you find someone who can.
And today, Angel Hess has an angelic offer for each of you KSCO listeners, and only you KSCO listeners. A free half-hour consultation. That's right. Just pick up the phone and call her with your legal matter, mention KSCO, and get your free consultation today. When you find yourself in need of legal help, call on Angel L. Hess, Attorney at Law in Santa Cruz at 831-426-8536 or www.santacruzlegal.net.
Chef Ben here from the Back Nine Grill and Bar at the Pasatiempo exit, sharing with you our family meal. A full rack of ribs, a whole smoked chicken, a pound of pulled pork, and plenty of barbecue sauce. Served with a full quart of baked beans, coleslaw, macaroni and cheese, dinner rolls, onions and pickles, including dessert, homemade brownies, and a pint of Marianne's vanilla bean ice cream. Feeds 4 to 6 hungry people, ready in 15 minutes. See you at the 9.
Cami Corvin is the executive producer for the Think Local First radio show. Join Cami each Saturday from 2 to 4 as she hosts what is going on in our community for local businesses and local issues. Think Local First is brought to you by Bruno's Bar and Grill in Scotts Valley, Togo's in Scotts Valley, Capitola and Watsonville, Tremonti Italian Restaurant in Santa Cruz, and Kissed by an Angel. Think Local First every Saturday on AM 1080 or KSCO.com.
Okay, men, time to be an all-star caregiver. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments, be there emotionally and physically. Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Well, here we are right at the end of the program. I am sorry to tell you that I have just enough time to say goodbye to Amy and to Nan Su and invite you to join us next week on China Uber Alice.